Welcome to Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy, and this is every Easter egg reference and little thing you missed in WandaVision, Episode 6. Welcome to the Halloween episode of WandaVision. The Halloween issues were always pivotal in the Vision and Scarlet Witch comic books, and this episode is a big turning point as well. Now, this episode is in the style of a late 90s, early 2000s single-camera sitcom, specifically Malcolm in the Middle. They copied the direct address.
It's stupid, but hey, you get to hit people.
And the style of the intro.
Life is unfair.
Malcolm in the Middle is kind of an appropriate choice because this episode deals with fragmented memories.
Details are fuzzy, man.
That's not exactly how I remember it.
And Frankie Muniz, who played Malcolm, now has brain damage and can't remember his own time on the show. Notice that now we've moved into the digital age. This is being filmed with a DV camera as denoted by this crappy bitrate here. Our friend Bill Scurry pointed out this split diopter shot in the opening. Now this actually requires a special lens that keeps two focal points in focus while still blurring the background. This advanced single camera work is very in tune with Malcolm in the Middle, which was always experimenting with sitcom cinematography. Last episode, Wanda said,
Well, I'm tired of hiding this.
And boy does it show in episode 6. She uses her powers in public, discusses changing reality with her brother.
Where were you hiding all these kids up till now?
What?
More on that in a bit. And the theme song just lays out what's happening here. The lyrics are, don't try to fight the chaos, don't question what you've done. Chaos is a reference to the chaos magic that she uses in the comics. And the chorus goes, so what if it's an illusion, just keep it going. So Wanda and the show are acknowledging that this isn't real. Now compare that to the ironclad reality that she created in the first 2 episodes. Or you can also interpret the theme song as someone speaking to Wanda, urging her not to think too hard about this. Now we've thrown out a lot of theories about this show, that she's being controlled by the Kree, Hydra, or my favorite theory is that Wanda is actually controlling herself. Then this theme song could just be a message that real Wanda is sending to sitcom Wanda. Vision's newspaper has another ad for a TV set like all the papers in every episode, but this one shows a flying saucer and an alien with the slogan otherworldly deals. This seems to play into our theory that the alien Kree are controlling everything, or at least this connects to the involvement of SWORD, the government agency designed to prevent alien threats. The juice that Billy is holding is the same juice that we saw in the Lagos paper towel commercial in the last episode. Now it's interesting that the show has shifted to the kids' point of view, with them speaking to the camera. Now this to me implies that Wanda has actually created real kids, and they're not just strangers who are under her control. Maybe this means they could even survive outside the Hex. It could also mean that they're simply extensions of Wanda's subconscious, but I'll get into that later. Billy is even dressed like his superhero alter ego, Wiccan. So this could be a hint that the twins are going to survive, grow up, and become heroes. And we actually have a video coming out about the twins and their potential future in the MCU. Subscribe and click the bell to make sure you catch that one. They say,
It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you're secretly afraid he's a vampire.
Because Pietro is undead, freshly risen from the grave. There's a flashback to the boys playing Dance Dance Revolution, the subject of an episode of Malcolm in the Middle. Now notice the colors on the pad are red and blue, like the costumes of Wanda and Pietro and Wanda's kids. And speaking of costumes, in another meta moment, everyone is wearing comic-accurate uniforms. Pietro even has Quicksilver's signature wingtip hair. Wanda says she's
I'm a Sokovian fortune teller.
which refers to her gypsy mother Magda from the comics. At least I think she's still her mother, it's hard to keep track. When she flashes back to Sokovia, I think we all know who played this old woman. That's writer-director-actor Stephanie Astalis-Jones. Following last episode's fight, there's a lot of tension between Wanda and Vision in this episode.
Mom and Dad have been not fighting, just like different.
When he doesn't play along with sitcom reality, she starts to correct him, but backs off.
But no, that's not what you're supposed to...
What?
Now I see this as Vision getting more powerful and regaining his memories, unlike in episode 3 when Wanda was able to wipe his mind. Pietro says,
You probably suppressed a lot of the trauma.
which is basically what's caused this entire show to happen. Wanda has suppressed all of her traumas going all the way back to childhood, until she had a psychotic break and created a new reality.
Forget the past. This is your future.
The commercials in the show are her way of reducing those traumas to short, meaningless interludes in her life. Oh, and did you notice this tattoo that Pietro has? That's a fitting tribute to his late mother. Or it could read HOM for House of M. That's the comic storyline where Wanda loses control of her abilities and rewrites reality to regain her children. Back in the outside world, they bring the drone into SWORD HQ. Last episode, I failed to notice that this drone was made by Stark Industries. Hayward says,
And which one of you is the sassy best friend?
a nod to the sitcom trope that Agnes always fills in this show. Hayward again proves himself to be a massive a-hole in this episode, and some kind of secret villain. So there's lots of theories here. Is he Mephisto? Is he Ralph? Is he a Kree? Darcy, Jimmy, and Monica are once again the proxy for all of our fan theories.
haven't made it through Hayward's last firewall, there's something big here, something that can help us. I know it.
Now here's what I think, based on just this episode. Hayward was traumatized by the snap.
You have no idea what it was like. What it took to keep the lights on.
And he stepped up to keep the world safe. Sword stole the Vision's body under his direction to reactivate it as a weapon to be used by Sword. We see later that this was called Operation Cataract. A cataract is a waterfall, but it also is a membrane of cells that grows over the eye to obscure vision. Just like their project was to control the Vision. Later on, we see that he's only tracking the Vision because he's his main concern. After Hayward kicks them off the base, they sneak back on wearing ponchos, the same trick that Thor used to get his hammer. So now let's talk about the costumes. At first, I was surprised that given how much IP Disney owns, that these were all copyright-free generic costumes. But then I remembered that Wanda wants a generic life. No superheroes allowed. But there are a few interesting suits that I noticed. A couple of bees, maybe a nod to this Blind Melon video, or maybe this connects to the Beekeeper and the Hive and Hydra and... Not the bees! Now this kid looks a lot like this trick-or-treater from Vision and Scarlet Witch issue 1. Or, like Matt Singer theorized, they could be dressed up as a character from their favorite movie, Eyes Wide Shut. This giant cat could be a nod to Ebony, Agatha Harkness's transforming cat from the comics. And here's a generic Jason, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and these three witches are around a cauldron, like the witches in Macbeth. Now these three crones give Macbeth a prophecy that he tries to avoid that eventually creates his own downfall. Very similar to the prophecy that Wanda placed in Tony Stark's head in Age of Ultron. In trying to protect the world, he made it weaker. The recurrence of witches is interesting because Wanda is the Scarlet Witch in the comics, and Agnes is also dressed up like a witch. Like I keep saying, she could actually be Agatha Harkness, who in the comics is... All witches! In the opening, she's wearing purple pants, Agatha's signature color. She even cackles like the Wicked Witch of the West. And this costume is an Easter egg from the show Home Improvement. That's Your Mom. Pietro says, I feel the need for speed. A series of racing games and a line taken from Top Gun. The need for speed. Wanda mentions an orphanage where they grew up and a kid.
You know, he was the one, he had the skin thing.
Now, if I were trying to find X-Men Easter eggs, this sounds an awful lot like Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters and one of the many mutants with strange skin, including Skin. Now this is interesting.
Why do you look different?
One of many clues that Wanda is being manipulated, or at least doesn't understand what's happening with her powers. Personally, I think Pietro is an extension of her subconscious, maybe another aspect of her split personality. More on that later on. In our Ending Explained video, I talked about how Wanda could have reached across the multiverse to find an alternate universe version of her brother who was still alive. In this case, the version of Pietro from the Fox X-Men movies. Pietro says, Unleash Hell, Demon Spawn! Which is a nod to the comics where Billy and Tommy are actually shards of Mephisto's soul. Wanda drops this line,
Kick-ass.
Which is an incredibly meta moment because Pietro actors Evan Peters and Aaron Taylor Johnson were both in the Marvel film Kick-Ass, which is not part of the MCU. Now you can read this as a cute little in-joke to fans, or this could have much wider, far-reaching implications for the MCU and the multiverse. Maybe in doing this, her subconscious also scanned the Kick-Ass universe with another hero who looked like her brother. In the comics, Wanda is a nexus being, meaning that she is the same across all realities, a living nexus that connects all of the multiverse together. This could explain her role in Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. Maybe Strange needs her to help navigate the multiverse. Herb is dressed as Frankenstein's monster, and he asks her,
Do you want something changed?
Now, this is interesting because in the past, he and Agnes have had some autonomy, at least when Wanda's not around.
She came here because we're all...
Stop it!
While poor Norm doesn't have any autonomy.
Make her stop! Now tell me this.
And the people who are furthest away from Wanda are frozen in place, like extras on The Truman Show. It's almost like she's a computer who doesn't have the processing power to control the entire town at once.
Looking good.
Slow down, my man!
She even referred to this in the last episode.
That I am somehow in charge of everybody in Westview. Walking their dogs, mowing their lawns, getting them to dentist appointments on time.
The commercial this week is a claymation ad, fitting because in the 90s,
which was the style at the time,
it's called Yo Magic, a spin on Yo Plate, makers of Go-Gurt.
You can take it anywhere, because you eat it with your hands, not a spoon.
So far, each commercial has been a link to a traumatic event in Wanda's past, and an Infinity Stone. By my count, we have at least 2 traumas left: the death of Pietro and the death of Vision. Now, this commercial is much more cryptic than the others. The island could represent Westview and how Wanda is trying to keep Vision alive, but he will die anyways. The boy slowly rotting is much like what happens to the Vision later in this episode. Ashra FXX on Twitter even pointed out that the shark could be a metaphor for Mephisto, offering a Faustian monkey's paw bargain to Wanda. Like, Mephisto is the shark, and he's saying, yeah, you can have the Vision, or the yogurt, but it's not the real Vision, and you can't actually eat the yogurt. Time advances quickly on the island, just like it does in Westview. Honestly, I feel like David Lynch directed these commercials, and I'm trying to break down every clue like it's Twin Peaks. What does the crab mean? What's with the red ether-like energy on the surfboard?
I've got good news.
Or the island could be Vormir, and the figure is the Red Skull guarding the Soul Stone. Pietro calls out Elizabeth Olsen for dropping her Sokovia accent in every other movie.
What happened to your accent?
What happened to yours?
On the marquee behind them, we see The Parent Trap and The Incredibles are playing. Now, I'm going to assume this is the 1998 remake of The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan because it's more period appropriate. That movie is about a pair of twins scheming to help their parents reconcile, just like Tommy and Billy are trying to keep Vision and Wanda together in this episode. And The Incredibles is a 2004 film about a superpowered family, and these are both owned by Disney.
No, I said more Mandalorian!
Then there's the reveal that the twins actually have the same powers that they do in the comics, where they're the heroes Wiccan and Speed. Vision goes to the furthest edge of town. Now notice that the color palette here is very dark and blue, more similar to the lighting in all of the sword scenes, because he's closer to the outside world. In contrast, all of the Westview scenes are very bright and well lit. Vision also transmutes his clothes, which I don't think we've seen him do before. This is interesting because we learned in the last episode that Wanda has converted the clothing in Westview from actual clothes.
Those pants are 87% Kevlar.
Similar to what we see Vision do in the movies. But in the movies, Vision's able to manufacture his own clothes from his body. So this implies that either Vision made his costume, or that he's able to undo the reality that Wanda has made, because their powers both come from the Mind Stone. And also, he may have lost the costume, but he keeps the wedding ring, which Wanda made for him. This could also symbolize the power that she has over him. Then he has this cryptic conversation with Agnes.
Are you here to help us?
Now this is played like she's just another citizen in distress, like Norm.
Please help me.
But there's definitely something up with Agnes. She's the only person who wasn't designated with a real name in episode 4. Her sweats in the opening say naughty on the back. And why is she able to slip out of character in previous episodes, but here she needs to be woken up by the Vision? This could also be an indication of Wanda's greater hold on the town. Now, I don't think Agnes is a villain, but she does have a deeper connection to what's really happening. I think she's putting on a little show here to give Vision hints about who he really is.
Am I dead?
No. Why would you think that?
Because you are.
A nice man named Mike Connor emailed me and pointed out that Agnes's license plate is the hex code for red, just like the red magic of Wanda's energy. Could be reading too much into this, but to me this definitely says that Agnes has a hand in creating this illusion. And by the way, the street, Ellis Avenue, is probably named after President Matthew Ellis from Iron Man 3, who is also named after comics writer Warren Ellis. Could also be a reference to Ellis Island, where immigrants like Wanda once entered the U.S. Back at the Sword base, Darcy runs through files and finds the names of a couple Sword agents, Jimmy Gadd and James Alexander. Now this is interesting, because these are the names of people who worked on post-production on this show. One of the names even appeared in the credits last episode. So does this mean that the credits Wanda generates at the end of the show are actually the Sword agents who are experimenting on Vision? Or is this just the post-crew slipping their names into the show? She also finds medical folders called Project 247. Because this is a medical folder, I'm going to assume that Hayward is conducting human experiments. Now, Darcy also points out that Monica's cells are changing from passing through the barrier twice, and soon to be 3 times. Notice that her blood work is even starting to look like the energy of the ether, just like Wanda's powers. Maybe Hayward was trying to create superpowered soldiers by studying Wanda's energy. Wanda might have even volunteered for this.
Well, I'm not the one with the guns, Director.
But before they could perfect the process, she found out they were holding Vision, flipped out, and took him from the base. But now the process they were trying to manufacture is happening accidentally, and Monica will soon become a superhero like she is in the comics. Ian Elliott Carter on Twitter even theorized that Wanda is actually creating the first mutants in the MCU. Cool theory. Either way, Hayward's project is going to be one of the key mysteries of the show.
I haven't made it through Hayward's last firewall. There's something big here, something that can help us. I know it.
Speaking of Monica, look, who's her guy?
My way back into the hex will be here in an hour. Just gotta meet my guy over the ridge.
Any theories on who her engineer friend? Tell me down in the comments. And Bill Scurry pointed out to me that this blow up in the square looks a lot like a Steve Ditko era rendering of the Doctor Strange villain Dormammu, yet another potential connection to magic and Doctor Strange. Then she and Pietro have a real heart-to-heart, where he reveals that he knows what she's doing.
Pressed. Seriously, it's a pretty big leap from giving people nightmares and shooting red wiggly woos out of your hands.
Now this reads to me like Wanda is talking to herself. It's the trope of a character seeing a dead loved one in a dream, and the dead loved one saying, well, I'm not really here, this is just your dream. I'm an extension of you. He says to her,
where were you hiding all these kids up till now?
What?
I assume they were all just sleeping peacefully in their beds. No need to traumatize beyond the occasional holiday episode cameo, am I right?
Which is a pretty meta moment. I can see the writers asking themselves the same question. Oh, we don't want Wanda to manipulate the children, so where do they go? Wanda again says,
I don't know how I did it.
Again, implying that she knows she's manipulating people, but has no memory of how it started. So, someone else might have manipulated her into starting this reality. Or she simply lost control of her powers, and this is what happened. Like Doctor Strange says in the comics, she has the ability to make a passing whim into a reality without even realizing it. For a moment, she flashes on dead Pietro, just like she flashed on dead Vision. To me, this is saying that Vision isn't dead, and that she was able to reform the Mind Stone to bring him back to life. These flashes could just be Wanda's PTSD, reminding her of the horrors that she's seen. So why do I think that? Because she didn't see Aaron Taylor Johnson's Pietro, she saw this new one. If it was real Pietro walking around like a zombie corpse, she would have seen him and not Evan Peters. Now maybe Wanda was influenced to create zombie Pietro by this movie playing in the background. This is the original Night of the Living Dead. When Vision emerges from the energy field, he still has the Mind Stone in his forehead. There could be a couple reasons for this. One, Wanda was able to reform the Mind Stone using her Infinity Stone abilities like I theorized weeks ago. Or two, notice how the field is pulling at Vision, like it has a hold on him. It could be that the field is what's giving him life and providing him with the Mind Stone in his head. It's interesting that he's being ripped apart slowly by the power of Infinity Stones, much like the people were dusted after the snap. I wonder if in a future episode we're going to see how Wanda reformed him, and if it actually looks like Monica being reformed at the beginning of episode 4. This pose is taken straight from the Kree-Skrull War panel in the comics, the story where Wanda and Vision first fell in love. Thanks Ella Strago for pointing that out to me. Then Billy senses his dad. Now, in the comics, he's the hero Wiccan and has the powers very similar to his mother's. Now the kids could just be extensions of Wanda's subconscious like Pietro.
I don't understand what's happening to me.
This would explain why he has her abilities, but I think they're real, maybe just shards of the Infinity Stone energy that she has given form to. That's why they have abilities similar to the stones, and why Billy has a link to Vision just like his mom does.
I just feel you.
And by the way, the person on this tombstone is actually the first AD on WandaVision. When Wanda expands the Hex, I get definite Guardians of the Galaxy 2 vibes. Darcy was consumed, and it seemed like she was about to say a curse word, just like Fury was interrupted in Infinity War.
Well done.
But Darcy actually gets out her entire word.
Only I didn't say fudge. I said the word. The big one.
I'm looking forward to seeing her sitcom character. Maybe it'll just be Cat Dennings' character from Two Broke Girls.
I don't know, my dealer, my other dealer. That guy who always asks if I know where my dealer is.
Now, I don't think she'll get superpowers from this experience. She specifically says that Monica went through multiple times.
You've gone through the boundary twice already, Monica. The energy inside has rewritten your cells on a molecular level twice.
And soon, Monica's going to pass through for a third time, meaning that the next time Carol meets up with Lieutenant Trouble, they'll both be superheroes. That's all the Easter eggs I found, but if you found any, let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.